We have, from time to time, talked about one particular concept we have in our society that we call the prime radiant. And this will now work once again to strengthen the analogy of this physiological oneness that exists, and so further illustrate how you really are connected to everything, and how every change you make within yourself truly affects and changes everything, everyone, everywhere, everywhen in existence. We do not say this to give you what you call a swelled head or a big ego, to think that you are so powerful that you affect the whole universe with your thoughts, but you do. And we would like to illustrate that this is a perspective that can lend a very beneficial understanding to your ability to change, and to know that when you change, you do not necessarily have to fall back into certain patterns or habits in your life that do not serve you, that you do not prefer, because you can begin to recognize through the analogy we will illustrate in a moment that every change really is such a complete change that once you make a change, you are really operating from a completely different universe and do not have to create the kind of attachment to things in your life that you don't prefer to. So, let us begin with this analogy of the prime radiant by discussing this in the following way. This may at first seem a little bit technical, but you will see very quickly, very rapidly, how this applies to your day-to-day, as you say, down-to-earth, practical and pragmatic existence. Now, some of the terminology we will use is, again, allegorical. We understand that some of these concepts are not even really accepted literally, even by some of the scientists in your society. But for the purpose of this analogy, certain terminologies will simply have to do. Primarily, the concept of what you call particles, subatomic particle, elemental particles. That which, by whatever name you wish to call it, would represent in your understanding the most basic, smallest idea or particle that makes up all of the matter in your physiological universe. So, let us begin there with this theoretical or hypothetical, infinitesimal, indivisible, ultimate particle. Now, there is only one particle, only one out of which everything is made. When we say that, we do not mean there is only one kind of particle out of which everything is made. We literally mean there is only one particle out of which everything is made. We explain it this way. This particle has really no mass to speak of. It has infinite velocity, infinite speed. Nothing slows it down. Nothing impedes it. Nothing at all. There is nothing to impede it. It is the only one particle in existence. It cannot be interfered with by any other idea of force or matter. Being that this one individual particle has infinite speed, what that means, you will soon see, is that it can be anywhere, everywhere, at the same time, because its speed is truly infinite. Therefore, this one particle can even appear next to itself over and over and over and over and over and over again at the same time, because its speed is infinite. This particle appearing next to itself over and over and over again, millions, billions, trillions of times, is what you perceive in your reality to be many different particles interacting with each other. It's all the same one particle interacting with itself. So, take this a step further, and you can very quickly recognize and realize that if there is only one particle, and it is the same particle as all the other particles that you perceive, and it is everywhere, anywhere, anywhen, you can very quickly see that the atoms that make up your body, the atoms that make up someone else's body, the atoms that make up your planet, the atoms that make up the stars, all the other planets, all the other matter throughout the entire physical universe are all one particle in what might be called an universal time-sharing mode, so to speak. So, if the particles that make up you is the same particle that makes up everyone else, you really are literally all one. The particle flickering back and forth at infinite speed to make up all the atoms in you, all the atoms in everyone else, all the atoms in everything else at the same time. You literally are the stars, are everyone else, even physiologically, not just spiritually, not just energetically, even physiologically, you all share the same one particle to build up the physical material that you see as many different particles. This means any change you make in your pattern, in your vibration, in your geometric pattern of this one particle forming the general shape of yourself, any change you make affects the path of that particle, the geometric path of that particle. And as it affects the path of that one particle, it must, by definition, affect that path for every other combination of that particle that exists. So even the tiniest movement of your little finger, even the tiniest electrical surge of thought in your brain affects the entire spectrum, the entire pattern of the entire physiological universe. You are all one. Does that make some sense to you? All right. So, again, we say this to allow you to understand not so much the concept of how much power you have, but the idea more precisely of how definitive, how impactful each and every one of you is, and how absolute the changes are that you make, so that you can see that when you change yourself and you change the entire universe, it is truly, literally, with every change, a different universe, with its own idea of itself, its own definition of itself at that moment, and really, unless you choose to make a connection to what was or what will be, there is no connection, because every universe is unique and exists only totally in the now moment that you decide to generate that particular change, that particular definition, that particular pattern. So when you want to change something about your world, about your reality, all you have to do is make a change in yourself, and you will see the change reflected by what appears to be the universe around you, because it is only a reflection of the vibrations, the patterns, the beliefs, the definitions going on within each and every one of you. And the great paradox of this is it works the same for everyone from every point of view simultaneously, for this is the quality of an infinite particle, a multidimensional reality. You all can make the same kind of changes simultaneously, and they do not contradict each other. You're not in conflict saying, well, what if I make a change here and it causes a change to happen over there where someone doesn't want a change to happen? It can't happen that way. It's a giant orchestration because, again, it's the same one thing. And every apparent individual component of it moves in the way it needs to move to accommodate every other move that is made. It all moves as one. It is not the idea of something imposing itself on something else. It is all one movement, one change going on simultaneously for the entire idea, even as it goes on for the individual components in different ways that are reflective or representative of the unique perspective that all the individual components are created to have.
We have discussed the idea of the difference between what we call all that is, what you in your society typically refer to as God. The difference between that and what we have referred to as the One. Now, it's all, in a sense, God, if you want to use that term. But the One, as we have discussed, is a homogeneous unbroken experience of existence that within itself has no awareness of itself, has no experience of itself. When it has been discussed, either in metaphysics or in science, that everything came from nothing, it's not really about the idea of non-existence. That's very different than nothing. And that's why we said nothing is still something. But it is an undifferentiated state that allows for no awareness of self and no experience, and it is that nothing that we're talking about. No experience, no thing, no awareness, because there is no reflection. Without a reflection, there is no self-awareness. Because in order for you to know the self, you have to have a sense of an other. Otherwise, if it's totally unbroken, there is nothing to reflect back to you that you exist. So the one has no awareness of its existence. It is simply the pure state of existence itself. But within the one, there has to be that one aspect that does know itself, that does experience reflection, that does experience reflection as other than self, which then reinforces the idea of its own selfhood. And that self-aware aspect of the one that is unaware is what we call all that is. It exists within the one. It is the self-aware aspect of the one. And it is in reflecting itself to itself through vibrational patterns within the one, then allowing that reflection to expand and continue and keep reflecting on and on and on and on and on and on and on to infinity, to eternity, forever and ever. This happens because there is nowhere else to go but being within the one, and therefore any reflection that might be existing within the one that becomes self-aware has nowhere to go but bounce around in that point, in that moment. And by bouncing around in that moment, it creates more and more and more and more reflections, which is what you experience as the expansion of existence, the expansion of creation, the expansion of the universe. But it's not really expanding outward. There is no outward. It's all happening within that single point, what we will call a moment point, because that moment point only has one moment, only has one point. You call them generally here and now, because there is nothing else, there is nowhere else, there is no other time really. So within the all that is, in the moment point that is God, in the total now, in the total here within the one, everything that you know, everything that you ever will know, everything you have ever known has happened, will happen, is happening. So the idea of the Big Bang expanding outward is an illusion, because it's all taking place within that same one single moment, in that same one single point. But all of the vibrational reflections within that moment point create what appears to be the illusion of outward expansion. And therefore you assume from your physical perspective that creation is expanding outward and growing in that sense into space and time. But it's not. It's all taking place within that single point. And I mean everything, everywhere, every when. All time, all space, all parallel realities, all dimensions are simply different vibrational reflections within that same moment point of itself. reflecting to itself, being self-aware on all levels of itself, because everything is made out of that consciousness. And that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is self-awareness. As soon as that aspect of the one knew itself through the first reflection by knowing itself compared to the reflection which is seen as the other, that dynamic itself is actually what creates your experience called consciousness. You are self-aware. And therefore, everything is made of that consciousness. Everything within God is God, made of God, for there is nothing else to make anything from. So everyone is all that is, experiencing itself as all the reflections that it is aware of itself. So each of us and each of you are all those reflections. You are all that is, but experiencing itself as a part of all that is. If you wish to imagine that you, to get an analogy, an illustration, are standing in the middle of an infinite hall of mirrors, and as you look around, you see all your reflections from different angles, because not only are you seeing your reflections, because of the different angles of the mirror, you are seeing reflections of your reflections and reflections of your reflections of your reflections, and on and on and on and on, from all the different angles you can, which means that some of the reflections will face you, some of them will be sideways, some of them will even be the back of you, because the reflections are reflecting into other reflections, so that you can experience every bit of all of the reflections that are reflections of you. But in the case of all that is, because everything is made of that self-awareness, everything is made of that consciousness, in this case of all that is, all of the reflections, being you and us, are actually also conscious, are also self-aware. That's the quality that exists within all the reflections. They're not just empty reflections in the way that you understand reflections in a glass mirror. Every reflection within creation is conscious in its own way. Even the idea of a rock is self-aware in a sense. It may not be exactly the same way that you are self-aware, the way you express consciousness, but it is still aware that it is this rock and not that rock. And the way that beings, expressions of consciousness, such as rocks, can do that, one of the ways is through you observing that there is this rock and that rock. So in other words, reflections can use each other to become self-aware in different ways. So because you are capable of observing that there are two different rocks, the rocks themselves then through you know that they are this rock and that rock, because it's all reflections of the same consciousness. And it doesn't have to have its own apparently self-contained awareness in the way that you feel you do in order to be aware that it is conscious, that it is what it is, separate from what other things are. Of course, again, there is no real separation. The separation is an illusion of that vibrational reflection. Just as, again, going back to the illustrative analogy, when looking at reflections in a hall of mirrors, you know, in a sense, that those reflections are not really separate from you really, because it's all the light going from you into the mirror and back to you. It's just the way you have set it up, but the reflection is an aspect of you. And it only appears to be separate because of the illusion of the framework of space and time that you have turned that single moment point into, from this perspective, this point of view, of that single moment, of that point. Because that's all you ever experience. What seem like different places, what seem like different moments in time and space are the same moment, the same place, the same point, from a different angle, a different reflective perspective. There is only here, there is only now, and everything, to put it in your language, is happening in that same moment. Everything simultaneously exists, and I mean everything. Leaves nothing out because it's all contained within that moment point, reflecting to itself over and over and over and over and over and over again all the different ways the reflection can be experienced to allow self-awareness to continue to express itself and consciousness to continue to express itself through all of those reflections that are possible. That is the structure and nature of existence. That is the structure and nature of God. Now, the idea of the reconciliation between what you call on your planet science and what you call spirituality, well, the bridge is consciousness. Some of the scientists on your planet are beginning to realize that you cannot have a complete theory of the universe without including consciousness, because you are conscious. And therefore, that is a quality of existence itself. Let's give you another analogy. Let's say someone were to bake you a cake, but they cut a slice of that cake out and give it to you. So you are not looking at the whole cake. You're only looking at your slice of the cake. Now someone suggests, why don't you analyze the ingredients of that slice? And you start to analyze it and say, well, there is flour, and there are eggs, and there is milk, and there is sugar, and a variety of other things. And that should tell you what the rest of the cake also contains. You are slices of cake. And if you are conscious, that's a quality that must exist within existence itself in totality. So everything is conscious in its own way, even though it may express it differently than you. If you contain what you consider to be self-awareness and consciousness, because you are just a reflection, an aspect, a slice of all that is, then all that is itself must also contain that ingredient. It's a quality of the existence that you are a part of. Just that you are expressing it in a different way than other reflections might, that's all. But all are self-aware in their own way, as they need to be to express the reflection that they are. So your science can begin to reconcile the idea of metaphysics and spirituality and science by allowing themselves to finally understand the mechanics of consciousness. Because when they understand the mechanics of consciousness in a way that I am describing it to you now, they can make their equations that make sense to them. They can use their language to understand it. But first they have to understand the nature of it, the structure of it, the mechanics of it, and why things are conscious, why self-awareness is consciousness. And as soon as they do that, you open the door to great understanding, a great many things, including the expression that you are now experimenting with and exploring called artificial intelligence. Because as we have said, artificial intelligence isn't really artificial. It's just another reflection of the intelligence and the consciousness of all that is. And as we have said, that when you truly do create an artificially intelligent device, you will discover that you're actually speaking with your own higher minds through it. It's just another way you are inventing to allow yourselves to expand your recognition of another reflection of your greater being.
You have many names for the idea of what you call God. God, Goddess, Allah, Jehovah, Tetragrammaton, the Light, the I am that I am, Wakantanka. It doesn't really matter what it is that you use as a name to identify the concept of all that is. But it is important to understand that all of these names represent different archetypal expressions, different angles and different perspectives of the same one thing, so that all of your apparently separate religions, no matter how they present themselves, no matter how many symbols they use to represent the idea of God or aspects of God, are all talking about the same thing, but from different points of view that serve the uniqueness of the culture in which they live, But the idea is to understand that it all comes from source, it all is within the light. And the light, source, all that is, expresses itself in all these ways in order for there to be sufficient symbols for all the different cultural experiences on your planet, all the different individual experiences, even within a culture on your planet. As we have said, the misinterpretation of what you have called, in one particular Judeo-Christian culture, the Ten Commandments, are really the messages that were delivered in a very different way that have been misunderstood, misquoted, because of the level of understanding that existed in the culture at the time. And the so-called First Commandment, I am the Lord your God, thou shalt not have false gods before me, really was a mistranslation and a misunderstanding of the idea that really would be more accurately represented as, I am that I am, and all reflections are me, therefore none can be false before me, for I am all that is. So the idea is to understand that all that is presents itself in a variety of archetypal forms, the father energy, the mother energy, God, Goddess, all that is, as you sometimes say. And these serve various functions and translate into your reality as, shall we say, smaller representations of all that is that are specifically designed to deal with specific cultural differences, specific ideology differences, specific individual interpretations and differences. Fundamentally speaking, the archetypes are all that is way of making sure that no matter what angle you approach all that is from, you will have a symbol and a representation that can serve your unique perspective. They are all true parts of all that is, because there's nothing outside of all that is. Anything you can experience as an archetypal representation, or even when you assume it is the entire representation of all that is true and accurate, because all that is everything that can possibly be. There's no outside to it. There is nothing that is not it. So it doesn't really matter how you relate, what relationship you form with the idea of any presentation of all that is, any idea or formation of the idea of God, be it the old man with the long beard, be it the idea of the Virgin Mother, be it the idea of a rock or a mountain. It matters not to all that is, because all that is all those things, and more, beyond even your imagining. For all that is in its archetypal presentations also forms the symbols that are relatable to not only your particular human culture, but many cultures throughout the cosmos, throughout infinity, anything and everything being a reflection of all that is, has its own way of understanding the presentation of archetypes from source, has its own representations that make sense to their cultures. So there are an infinite variety of presentations of all that is, but it is still the same one thing fundamentally. But as you expand your consciousness and start to realize that all of these are different faces of the same thing, as many people on your planet have expressed, the 9 billion names of God are still representative of the same one thing in the holographic, multidimensional presentation that it can use to present itself, then you start to allow those differences to sort of melt away, except for the parts you feel you need, and allow yourself to have a direct relationship, more directly, with Source, without necessarily needing it to be anything but the light. And in that light, you feel the vibration of the eternal existence that it is, the vibration you translate as the unconditional love of God. This is the vibrational frequency of existence itself. It is unconditionally supporting, unconditionally loving. And the idea is that there is no judgment in this. There is no expression of the negative in this. So even when individuals in different cultures might express or experience the idea of negative or demonic experiences, you have to understand this is still all part of God. Because there is the positive, there is the negative, and there is the neutral. These are the major archetypal energies, and they can be expressed in a variety of ways that can serve either positive or negative means. So allow yourselves to lessen the differences, in a sense, use them in whatever way serves you, use them in whatever way allows you to learn the lessons you need to learn for the agreements that you chose to experience, the challenges that you created for yourself in this life to learn who you are and grow in various situations. Again, using the positive and negative mechanisms in a variety of ways. For ultimately, again, when you return to spirit, when you remember more of who you are, it will just be an experience. You will experience the archetypal expression of your life, which is another archetypal expression, because each and every one of you is unique, and you form your own archetypes for others to connect to draw upon, to download information from and experience from, the archetype that you are of all that is, because everyone is all that is, experiencing itself as all of the individualities that you believe yourself to be. So you are also an archetype of all that is, an archetype of God, experiencing itself in a unique way, knowing itself from a unique perspective.
We have discussed along this notion of living in the moment, the idea that what you choose your state of being to be is of paramount importance. State of being is the most critical issue, which is why in The Secret it was mentioned that the secret to the secret was simply choosing to be happy. For no other reason other than that is your preferred state of being. Because there is no empirical physical reality, then state of being really becomes the only thing that determines the experience that you have in the idea of physical reality, because that's all it is. It's an experience, it's an idea. That is what is real about it, the experience. But physical reality itself is not real by itself on its own. As you choose the state of being that you prefer, or based on whatever beliefs you have within your physiological mind, personality, structure, as you choose beliefs that determine what your state of being will be, that, of course, is what determines how you experience this idea of yourself called physical reality. Because that's all it is. It's an experience of your own consciousness from a particular point of view, from a particular state of being that generates that kind of an effect within you, that you then call an externalized physical reality. Circumstances in physical reality, thus, are illusionary. They're just symbols. Again, as we have said many times, it's just a reflection based on what you are giving off. Now, The Secret calls this idea, law of attraction, the primary law. We refer to it as the third law of creation. It is, however, the first law of action, even within the four laws. Because the first law, that you exist, is simply a description of a state of being. The second law, that the one is all, the all are one, is also a description of the nature, of the structure of that state of being.
But the third law, what you put out is what you get back, is the first law of action. And that is what is being said and the difference being made in the secret by calling the law of attraction the first or primary law of the universe. Because it is the first law of action, and it's therefore the first law that actually brings about manifestational experience. Then the fourth law, everything changes except the first three laws, is what qualifies and colors that experience, what allows you different perspectives of the experience of creating the idea of physical reality. You will remember that what was also very important in the secret was this idea that we talked about before about being passionate, as expressed in the concept of play, of playing with everything that happens in your reality, really having an attitude of gratitude toward it so that you receive every experience you have in a playful way, and thus by receiving it in that playful way can do that much more with it, be that much more creative with it, allow it to be that much more flexible, malleable, stretchable, changeable, formable. Play. That energy is what allows physical reality to become like clay. So play with the clay of physical reality. If you approach it from an energy state of being that is of a lower vibration, that's when the clay hardens. That's when it's unchanging in that state. But as soon as you start to be more playful with what's going on in your life, it softens and becomes clay-like, plastic, malleable, formable, changeable again, and gets in step with the fourth law, as you do. Change is the only constant. So in that sense, when you become more playful, you become more changeable. And as a result, your physical reality will mirror that changeability. Become easier to transform from one kind of reflection to another. Now, very important. This is where physical mind, once again, can sometimes get caught up in its own sense of control. And that is that when we talk about the idea that what you put out is what you get back, the physical mind, because, again, of how it looks at physical reality being the only thing there is, will assume that if it doesn't see an exact one-to-one reflection in the circumstances that surround you with what it is you believe you're giving off, you will think that something has failed. Again, I remind you, this is where you get caught in your own paradoxical trap. Even though it is true that what you put out is what you get back, and that by being in a certain state of being, that will determine what the circumstances around you are, the first stage of that, the first manifestation of that will be usually, especially in your world of space and time, usually the first reflection will look the same as it used to. Because this gives you an opportunity to reinforce the state of being by responding to the circumstances that look the same differently than you did before. And that is where you then allow the circumstances to truly reflect that you have changed and demonstrate that you truly have changed by responding to the circumstances differently, even if they look the same as they used to. That's how it works. So the first reflection will usually be an echo of how it used to look. You must not respond to the echo as if that's the representation of your new state. You must respond to it, in a sense, as if you know it's just an echo, and that what you're putting out now, the new response, to the old circumstances, that will solidify the vibration of your preferred state of being and truly allow the circumstances to change themselves and take their cue from the new vibration you're putting out, which is the absolute certainty that you are different. Because if you respond to the old echo in the same way you used to, you are not different. So in a sense, it's like you're testing yourself. It's like you're giving yourself an opportunity to decide whether you really do want the circumstances to change by first presenting yourself very often with the same set of circumstances to see if you respond differently to them, making a clear commitment that you have, in fact, vibrationally changed your state of being. Once you have then done that and respond differently to the same set of circumstances, then you have established that you truly have changed, and then the circumstances can reflect that change. So don't be fooled by the echo into thinking you've done something wrong by labeling it in the same way you used to. Oh, I didn't see what I wanted to get immediately. It looks the same as it did before. The same people are here giving me the same kind of feedback. I must have done something wrong, or something's not working. Or you find that you're reacting to it in the same way you used to, because if you do, you have not changed. So that's the self-reinforcing mechanism that gives you the opportunity to decide whether you really want to change that circumstance or not. Because again, remember, all belief systems by definition are self-reinforcing. They have to be. If belief systems were not self-reinforcing and making themselves seem like the only thing there is to believe in, you wouldn't be able to have an actual, distinct, discrete belief system experience. If beliefs did not come with a self-reinforcing mechanism, you wouldn't be able to have a discrete physical experience. And because they come with a self-reinforcing mechanism, when you change your vibrational state, one of the last things to fade will be the self-reinforcing mechanism. It will present the same scenario to you once again, but it will be presented not as a concrete reality, but only as an illusion, only as an echo of what was, to give you a chance to really decide that you will break through that self-reinforcing mechanism by defining and labeling it differently than you used to, proving that you have changed, thus allowing the reflection to then truly come. That's how that works. Use that mechanism to your advantage by understanding very clearly. And if you wish to use this almost as a mantra, you certainly may. Again, as we discussed last night, all of these things are nothing more than permission slips that, if you decide they work for you, if you decide they resonate according to your frequency, will simply allow you to permit yourself to change in the way you prefer to. The mantra doesn't do it for you. It simply is a reflection of the belief system within you that says this is what you will allow to give you permission, to give yourself permission to change in the way you wish to. So use this as a mantra if you wish, if it works for you, knowing that you're doing it if you need it at all. And that is, again, the idea, not even so much the statement that circumstances do not determine state of being. State of being determines circumstances. Now, you can use that. However, we would also suggest something even simpler and something even stronger. And that is simply, and the mantra is this: circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters. And again, listen to the way that this synchronistically translates in your English language. Circumstances don't matter. They do not create materialization. Only state of being matters. Only state of being materializes experience. So, the mantra is, anytime you find yourself doubting, stuck, fearful because of what you believe the situation is, what you believe the circumstances are, you can, if you wish, use this little reminder. Circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters. And then choose the state of being you prefer. And then redefine the circumstances from that state of being, so that you can erase the echo and allow the true reflection to then take form from your state of being. Circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters. Now, we apologize if what we are about to do with you to some of your physical minds may sound, a little cultish. It isn't meant this way. It's simply meant to express to you something very important. It's one thing very often to your physical minds when you hear someone else's voice say something. It's another when your own voice says it. So, repeat out loud after me. Circumstances don't matter.
Circumstances don't matter.
Only my state of being matters.
Only my state of being matters.
Now, do it with excitement in a calm way. Because what this begets is simple certainty. Repeat. Circumstances don't matter. Only my state of being matters. One more time. Circumstances don't matter. Only my state of being matters. One more time. Circumstances don't matter. Only my state of being matters. Understand. When you say this to yourself in your own vibrational voice, you will start to listen. Because what you're doing by making this statement is what we talked about earlier. You are voicing a message from the higher self in language the physical mind understands. This mantra and all mantras of this nature are exactly that kind of tool. It is a way of translating for the physical mind in terms it can understand a communication from the higher self. That's why they're powerful, if you agree that it's a permission slip that works for you. So, anytime you find yourself in doubt, in fear, confused about the circumstances going on, stop. Say to yourself, out loud, no matter how many people might think you're crazy. Yes, of course, yes, of course, yes, of course, you can say it inside your head if you wish to. But if you're really being bold, and if it's really important to you to have the reality you prefer, then make a commitment and say it out loud. You don't have to shout, you don't have to scream. But stop and say, circumstances don't matter. Only my state of being matters. What state of being do I prefer? Then choose. And as you choose, behave that way toward the circumstances. You will be amazed at how quickly it will evaporate. You will take people off guard. At the very least, they might say, "Oh, she's crazy," and move away. And then you won't have to deal with them anymore. So one way or another, it will create the bubble reality of your preferred vibration, and will act as an organizing principle and driving engine to move out of that bubble any vibration that is incompatible. It is one of the strongest, most centering statements you can make for yourself. Circumstances don't matter. Only my state of being matters. What state of being do I prefer? Then behave that way. That's all there is to that idea of centering. That's all there is to the idea of redefining, re-identifying yourself, and remaining on the cutting edge, the leading edge, the crest of the wave of the transformation. That's really all it takes. Now, to whatever degree your physical mind's belief system will allow you to believe that is your process to work on, if such a process is even needed. But I guarantee you, if you can truly, as you say, get into the absolute certainty of that statement, if you can truly understand that it is a true message from your higher self in physical mind terminology, and you truly pay attention to it, don't just get caught up in rote repetition until your voice becomes a droning thing you no longer hear. But when you truly say it in your own voice and truly listen to your own voice and pay attention to the vibration of your own voice saying it, you will hear the truth in it. And as soon as you really hear the truth in it, you will feel your entire physical being go, oh, I don't have to try so hard. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Only my state of being matters. Oh, joy. What is this feeling? What is this feeling? Oh my gosh, it's so foreign. Joy? Unbridled, unconditional love and joy. I'm tingling. You know, I like this sensation. I think I'll create more of it. Now, then. We love your paradoxical language. No wonder you're so confused. Now, then. Now or then? All right.
Let the past define us and...
Stop. Would you like to change that?
We choose
Thank you.
to let the past define us.
Thank you.
And we choose to let the future steer and guide us.
Yes.
Can you go into a little more detail on some of the mechanics at work here that have us get stuck in these moments and have us holding on to these beliefs and refusing to let them go?
Yes. We have described this before. We will describe it briefly again. The mechanics literally have to do with beliefs that are in what you might call the wrong place. So, in other words, we've described to you the motivational mechanism. Have you heard us talk about this?
Yes.
Do you not understand it? That's the mechanism that you're asking about. The motivational mechanism. Do you understand it? Do you remember what it is?
Can you please expand on it?
I will take that then as a no.
Sure.
The motivational mechanism for all of you is this. This is a given. You will always, and I mean always, without fail, there are no exceptions, none of you, no exceptions, anywhere, at any time, ever, all of you will always move in the direction, act in the direction of what you believe is to your benefit. You will always move away from what you believe is not to your benefit. Once you understand that mechanism, then the logical questions follow. If I recognize that I am choosing things that I can see are not to my benefit, and I understand how the motivational mechanism works, that would mean, that must mean, I must have a belief attached to that mechanism that makes what I know would be to my benefit appear not to be to my benefit. I must have a belief attached to it that makes what I know is not to my benefit seem more beneficial than the alternative. That's the mechanism. Therefore, when you find out what those beliefs are, you can see that they don't actually make any sense where you have placed them. And once they make no sense, they're gone, and you can then recognize that a different belief, a more positive one theoretically, will take its place in the proper order in the motivational mechanism, and there will be no more impediment. You will break through it. That's how it works. So it's about examining the beliefs you have about the past in relation to you, the beliefs you have about the future in relation to you, and finding out which ones don't work for you and creating ones that do, and then letting go of the ones that don't and implementing the ones that do. The motivational mechanism framework doesn't care what you place on it. It will work the same. It will always amplify what you say is to your benefit, always, even if it's not, because you're the one that's placed it in that position in the mechanism, making it seem more beneficial or less beneficial. You have to get the order in the way that works for you. Yes?
Right.
Is this making sense?
Indeed.
Is this answering your question?
It is, and I'm wondering if there are other, I guess, psychological or energetic components.
Of course there are.
Yeah.
But they're still all based on what you believe to be true.
Right. That's the
It all
foundation.
comes down to that. All of it. So it doesn't matter in what way you might express it psychologically. It doesn't matter in what way you might have been taught. The idea is you're telling yourself a story about yourself that doesn't work for you. Tell yourself a story that does. If along the way, because of the reflective mirror in the kit of excitement that reveals to you beliefs that don't work for you, which is its job, yes?
Yes.
So part of your excitement is to find out what is not your excitement. That's part of your excitement.
Yes.
So you can let it go and add the energy to your excitement. How exciting is that? Very. So when you proceed to the best you can in exploring these things, you will start to construct a different story that makes more sense to you about who you prefer to be in that story. Then you will start living that story, and you will experience a different kind of life. You don't have to make it more complicated than that, unless you believe you must. But if you're experiencing more complication than that, it's only because you've been taught to believe that you should. Remember, there is no such thing as an inherently difficult circumstance. Only your belief allows you to experience it that way. Everything is neutral. Doesn't have built-in meaning. You give it meaning with your definitional belief, and it responds in kind because it doesn't have a choice to do anything else but reflect back what you have put out. That's the law. That's the nature of existence. It's the structure of existence. Physical reality doesn't exist outside you. It exists within you. It's a concept. It's a projection. It's a dream. There's nothing out here. Nothing. There actually is nothing at all. There is no outside, in a sense. It's not when I say there's nothing out here that there is still an out here with nothing in it. There is no out here for anything to be in. There is no out here for nothing to not be in. There is no out there. Out there. So,
From within, so without.
it's just a reflection. Again, you know that when you look at your reflection in a mirror, you're not really over there. It's just a reflection. Is this helping?
Very much.
All right. Anything else that you would like some clarification on? Or do you feel that this is actually answering your question sufficiently?
It is. And what you've explained about time travel, shifting between realities,
Yes.
is, and especially with regard to the future, that seems easily understandable, especially with a linear perspective.
Yes.
What is, I suppose, or could be chosen to be a more challenging understanding is that of how the past is not set and equally malleable.
Yes, but that's only because that's what you've been taught to think about the past.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that's the way it is. That's just the way you've been taught to look at it.
Right. And one of the most striking examples seems to be that of miracle healing.
Yes.
So someone has an irreversible ailment,
Yes.
and they come to a point where they experience that healing,
Yes.
and suddenly it vanishes, and they
Yes.
stand up out of the wheelchair
Yes.
or whatever.
Yes.
Because they shifted to a reality where it did not exist.
Exactly, and that means they are not the same person that had it. They've never had it.
Mm-hmm.
It goes that far. Do you understand?
Yes.
It's not that they're the same person and they no longer have it. They are a person who never has had it.
Right.
Therefore, it doesn't even show up anywhere in the timeline. Yes? Now, you can create the continuity if you want as an experience. Oh, yes, I used to have it and now I no longer have it. But in a sense, that's just wordplay. Because you actually are a new person who never had it. But you're maintaining a sense of continuity that you're the same person who let it go. That's just the way you need to experience it for yourself so that you can gauge that you have changed, that you have grown, that you have made something else happen. That's your way of knowing you've become a new person. You're just using language that makes it seem as if you're the same person when you're not. That's all.
Okay.
So it's the difference, as we say, between describing an experience and actually describing the mechanism that causes the experience. Big difference. Big difference. That's why many of your definitions are outdated, old-fashioned. You still think that the description, the old-fashioned, outdated description, is actually a description of the mechanism. It's often not at all. It's just a description of how you choose to experience it. But it may have nothing to do with how the mechanism that caused it actually works at all. Do you understand?
Right.
The simple example we often give is the concept you call telepathy, which we term telepathy. Most people on your planet go, oh, well, you can read my mind. No, you can't. What you're doing is creating a vibrational frequency that is so similar to the vibrational frequency of someone else. You're mirroring them so closely, you're having the same thoughts at the same time. The effect, the experience seems to be, you're reading my mind. But the mechanism is no such thing. The mechanism is you're simply on such a similar wavelength that you're having the same thoughts because only those thoughts are germane to that wavelength. Therefore, you're in sync with one another, having the same thoughts simultaneously, like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony. But the tuning forks aren't reading each other's minds. Do you understand?
Yes.
They are simply representing the vibration that represents that particular frequency. And that's it. So, description of the mechanism, very different than a description of the experience. Doesn't invalidate either, but it's important to tell the difference. Because when you just go with the idea of the description of the experience, you're reading my mind, it creates all sorts of misunderstandings and assumptions that don't work in your reality. The whole idea sometimes of your scientists attempting to test for psychic abilities like telepathy, they find many times that there's no evidence for it. Why? Because they're attempting to test the experience. It doesn't tell them what the actual mechanism is behind it. Therefore, they're doing the wrong test. And of course, they find no evidence for it because they don't understand what it is. They have proven that the experience is not the mechanism. That's what they've proven by saying there's no evidence for this. That's all they've proven. But they haven't yet realized that the mechanism itself is completely different from the experience that they've just disproven is not the mechanism. Yes? Mm-hmm. Does that help?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
You are kindly welcome.
Hi.
Annie, you good day.
Hi. So I'm new. So
You are? What, you were just born?
I mean, new to you.
Oh, all right. Then we must be new to you.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
So I hope this question doesn't make you want to energetically smack me. I'm sure it's been asked many times before.
Well, if it does, then probably that would be a good thing for you.
Okay, maybe. I'm having these high-pitched frequencies that people have heard about on
Yes.
the internet, and I've read about it, but they're not stopping.
Yes.
And I've been doing a lot more meditation and opening up a lot more to a lot of things spiritually.
All right.
So they're kind of getting annoying, and
They're getting in the way?
No, they're just like they're there, and they're kind of annoying sometimes.
Why are they annoying? What do you
The
think?
high pitched noise in my ears.
Yes, so what? What is it preventing you from doing?
Nothing. But why are they there, and are they ever going to go away?
Yes, when you catch up to the frequency, when
So
you
what-
match the frequency.
Okay. So how do why are they there now, and what can I do to catch up faster? Because they are annoying to me a little bit.
All right. Do you remember what we just said about the idea of the formula of acting on your passion to the best you can with no insistence, no assumption about the outcome?
Yeah,
Are you doing that all the time?
I am.
Are you sure?
I mean, I'm acting on it big time. Yeah, I am. I'm starting a whole new company. I'm doing it. But it's work too. So
I beg your pardon?
there's also work involved.
So what?
No, I am acting on my passion. I really am. And that's
Are
when
you
this all
doing it in
started.
the most exciting way you could be doing it? That means no, because you hesitated. You see, when it's yes, there's no hesitation. So the fact that I asked that question and you hesitated means no. So what could you be doing, or what way could you be doing it that's more exciting than the way you're doing it?
I have to work a part-time job while I'm doing this, and I don't want to, but I have to.
Why do you have to?
Money.
Here it comes.
I just have to right now. I have to,
Do you understand
Just for a
that
little bit.
it's okay if that's true, but do you understand that this is your insistence?
It's just part-time, but
Here comes the smack.
oh, yeah, okay. That's fine.
You're
I
not
told you I'm
going to
new.
get away with this.
Okay.
Do you understand our definition of abundance?
I've heard it. You can.
Would you like to hear it again?
Yes, please.
Are you paying attention?
I am.
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right. Abundance is the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Abundance can come in many forms. We understand on your planet, money is one of the symbols of abundance. Symbol of abundance. It's not abundance, it's a symbol of abundance. There are other symbols of abundance, other forms. Being given a gift freely is a form of abundance. Synchronicity is a form of abundance because it brings you what you need in perfect timing. When you relax your insistence that it should only come in one form because you, with your physical mind, have determined that that's the only way it will work for you in your life, you are closing the doors to the other ways abundance could come that might actually be a path of least resistance, might actually be more capable of supporting you than insisting on that symbol having to be there in a certain way, in a certain amount, at a certain time. You are putting so many restrictions and constrictions on the flow of energy through you that it's no wonder and no surprise that those constrictions are causing the energy to create a frequency of resistance that you're hearing in your head. You're constricting your own flow. Too much. Now I understand you have the beliefs that say, I have to do this, I have to do that, and that's fine. I am not saying that you should not honor your belief. What I am saying is, recognize that it's only because of your belief that you experience the need to have to do it. And the more you are capable of taking whatever time you can take, you are willing to take, you feel comfortable taking, to act on your excitement, will allow, over whatever time you're comfortable for it to take, will allow your excitement to start proving to you it can support you, it can sustain you, it can propel you, it can expand you. And bit by bit, again, at whatever rate your belief system is comfortable with, you will start letting go of what you now insist you have to do and start doing what you need to do. Remember, it's not about what you want to do. It's about what you need to do. Is this making some sense?
Yes.
Is this helping?
Yes.
So the idea is to allow yourself to look at the ways in which you are choosing to do things based on what you think it must be because of the beliefs you have that are restrictive beliefs, and start relaxing them a little bit and looking around for different ways to perceive and define things so that you can do things in a way that are more in alignment with who you prefer to be, which will allow your energy to flow more easily, allow you to relax those constrictions, and diminish the resistance vibrations that you're experiencing that are translating into that pitch.
Okay.
Is this helping?
Yes. Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
I've been working with crystals a lot, and I know you have your crystals, and I haven't caught up in that area yet. But can you address crystals in general?
Yes. In general, they fall into the category of what we call permission slips. Permission slips are simply any tool, any technique, any ritual, or any object that, according to your belief system, will allow you to circumvent your belief system. Therefore, it allows you, with your belief system, to give yourself permission to change your belief system. But you're the one changing it. It's just that you believe that the permission slip will help you do it, and that's fine.
Okay, so these, like the quartz here and the sphere there, you don't think that that...
Of course they are energy. Of course they are reflective of consciousness. But what I'm saying is they are reflective of it. They're not causing it.
Okay.
They're reflective of what you yourself decide is true for yourself.
Got it. Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, last one really quick. Sorry. I've been seeing black crows like constantly in weird ways. It's very obvious that it's a sign. It's not just like
synchronicity. Yes.
Constantly, all the time, and I'm trying to figure out what does this mean, and it's like...
All right, well, there's a couple of ways you can look at the symbol. First of all, by not necessarily allowing yourself to really go with the flow, by experiencing this constriction. Remember, insistence equals resistance. Remember that formula. Insistence equals resistance. Yes? So by not relaxing that insistence, you're and by experiencing these things that seem to hold you back, that make you feel like it's holding you back, you're taking the path, well, I'll just put it this way, you're taking the path of death. Yes? So, what's a large group of crows called? A murder of crows. So, in one sense, the crows are showing you that you're taking the path of death. But on the flip side, also, crows are known for going, ooh, shiny. Ooh, shiny. And being fascinated by things that shine, that glitter, that glow, attracting their attention. So they're attempting, as a synchronistic symbol, to reflect to you, just focus on the light. Yes? That will move you forward and take you away from the need to constantly follow the path of death.
Okay.
Does this help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's say, for the moment, if you wish to just sort of give a little bit of a fun label to that synchronicity, that the primary crow that you can relate to as a symbol that represents all of that, you can give that crow a name. Would you like to do that? Call it Edgar Allan Crow.
I want to talk to you about the timeline splitting. I know that we're in the process of them eventually crystallizing and not being able to see other people in our own, our own reality that do not vibrate with our frequency.
Yes.
I want to talk about personal relationships like our family and friends. Do those people who, if they're not on the same frequency and the same timeline as you, do they completely disappear, or do we get a different version of them?
It can be either.
Okay.
It depends on what their path is and what they're choosing in multiple realities. Sometimes they simply have a path that doesn't necessarily require them to have a version in the new reality you may have shifted to, and therefore you may never see them again. Sometimes they may have a version and you will interact with that version that is more compatible with the new reality. It just depends on their particular path.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Another one, I know because I've been watching lots of your transmissions from all over the years. When we go to sleep, I'm aware that we wake up in spirit. I want to know what your take is when we're asleep and in our form, what we're experiencing when we have what we call nightmares here.
Generally, although there can be many reasons, generally what you are doing is processing the negative beliefs and fear-based beliefs within your physical mind to make yourself aware, in a sense, on a safer level, that you have these beliefs so that when you wake up in physical reality, you can explore them and understand what they symbolized, what they mean to you, and it gives you a clue as to what it is to investigate within yourself about any fear-based or negative beliefs you may still be unconsciously holding on to.
Okay, cool. So we're not witnessing some negative timelines or anything?
Oh, you may be. You may be. It depends upon the dream. But again, for the most part, even if that's the case, it's still showing you a connection you may be creating to those things so that you can decide for yourselves whether to use them in a valuable way, learn from them in a valuable way, or process them in a way that is valuable to you here and now.
Okay, cool. Is there any guidance that you and your civilization may have when it comes to releasing those, I guess, subconscious beliefs, I guess?
Well, as we have said, yes, many, many times, we've given you the techniques of asking yourself the question, what does this mean to me? Why would I choose to believe this is true for myself or about myself in this circumstance or situation? Just dig down deeply and be willing to investigate whether you're holding on to something that doesn't serve you, and be willing to hear the answers and ask yourself, if I did move forward in the way that I prefer to, what am I afraid might happen? That will usually reveal the negative belief or fear-based belief to you that you can then work with.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This one's probably going to be a little bit odd. I've been pondering it for a while.
All right.
As the human species, when we're thinking about, obviously, your civilization and other species as a whole, just in general,
Yes.
do you guys do you feel that or see that? Is that kind of like one of the start of like the window of open contact?
It can be, but again, and again, as every individual is different, if there is a need for someone to be aware of it, they will be aware of it. If there isn't, they won't. But it will still serve the purpose of allowing you to experience a connection.
Yeah, cool. I've been having a couple of experiences alongside one of my really close friends. There's moments throughout our day where randomly on our right side of our eyesight, even though we're awake, we kind of get this blurred vision and we can see what I would describe as like white or blue energy.
Yes.
Kind of looks like when you see heat coming off a hot surface, like that aura.
Yes, we understand.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that may be?
Well, yes. First of all, realize you're surrounded by different dimensions of energy constantly. You may not be aware of them typically. But when you start to explore and expand your consciousness, you also change the sensitivity of your senses. And therefore your senses can begin to perceive things quite often first out of the corner of your eye, so it's not too much of a shock until you get used to it, and can bring it into focus right before you. But it's very typical that as you expand your consciousness, you can see what was heretofore invisible and make it visible to you, and get used to the idea that there's more going on around you than you thought.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have today. Thank you so much for your time.
It is our passion and our pleasure. We thank you as well.
Thank you so much. Love to you guys. See you.
Good day.
Good day.
Hi, everybody. This is Jay from Souk, Vancouver Island. I was hoping that you could give us a handful of words that, in your opinion, we could redefine as a collective and on an individual level as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and good day. And thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. As we have said, doubt is not a lack of trust. It's a trust, a 100% trust in something you don't prefer. So you're always trusting. There's no such thing as a lack of trust. There is, however, a trust in lack. So that's a reversal paradoxical definition that will allow you to always know you don't have to learn to trust. You just have to decide what it is you're trusting in. Depression is simply the negative perspective and definition of compression, which is a natural state when where you know you cannot find the answers you seek outside, you go within. You collapse within into a state where you investigate and examine yourself and come out redefining yourself as a new person. If you look at it as a natural state of compression, specifically for that purpose of finding out how to let go of beliefs that don't serve you and emerging as a truly new person, then you will not experience that sensation as depression, which is the negative side, thinking that something must be wrong with you just because you may feel like you're withdrawing from society for a moment. It's a natural thing to do when you need to go internal within yourself and find the answers that you seek. A walk-in is not a different soul coming into the same body and another soul leaving to make room for it. You are filled up with yourself. There's no room for anything else to be there. And if you decide to leave, nothing else really comes in the way that you mean it with respect to the concept of a walk-in. There are other things that can happen that we will address another time. But a walk-in is simply a shift in vibrational resonance, an ascension of the frequency of your own soul to another level that then demands a different expression of personality to come through to represent that shift in the vibration to a higher level of your soul. So it's the same soul expressing itself through a new personality, but it is the same being that was there before, just expressing itself on a different level. That's a walk-in. Ascension is simply the process, especially by following your passion or anything you love to do, or being in love, where you raise your frequency to another level that gives you a chance to receive higher frequency information and experiences and connections from higher dimensional realms. Now, ascension is not just something that is going to happen at a particular moment. You're always ascending if you're following your passion, if you're expanding your consciousness, if you're exploring ideas of spiritual reality. Ascension is an ongoing process of raising your frequency. You can lower it as well by the choices that you make, but that can still be part of ascension, because ascension can be the idea of going up and down and up and down and up and down in a straight line, or in a more positive way, you can understand that if you learn the lessons from the times you go down in vibration, that then when you learn those lessons, you will go up to a higher level the next time. So going up and down is a constant rising overall, even though you may go up and down in that process. But ascension, on its most basic term, is simply the raising of your frequency from one level to another.
Hello.
And good day.
Good day to you, Bashar. Thank you for seeing me.
It is our passion and our pleasure to do so. Thank you for the co-creation. What would you like to discuss?
So my first question then. Last time we spoke, you advised me to ask myself what am I afraid of would happen if I were to truly be myself and to truly let go.
Yes.
The answer I received was that I am afraid that all the pieces of me would fall apart and be lost, that I'm identifying so strongly with my labels.
Well, all right. But if you understand the whole concept from a holistic perspective of being yourself, why would you lose anything that was actually relevant to actually being yourself? Anything that would drop away would be those things that are no longer relevant for who you are. So you may have been afraid to lose the familiarity, thinking that you would wind up not knowing who you were, but that's contradictory to the very definition of being your true self, which would open up your awareness to the point where you would know exactly who you are.
Do you have any advice for those of us that are feel so strongly attached to these things that we think we are on that journey?
Well, continue your process of examining who you actually are compared to who you think you are, and allow yourself the time and the space to go through that process. You don't have to rush this. You can take your time, the whole point of your life anyway. And so explore as you wish, but as we often suggest and encourage you to do, follow the formula, because it contains all the things and tools necessary to reflect back to you whatever it is you need to look at, whatever it is you need to process, whatever it is you need to let go of, to gradually or quickly become more and more of who you are. So there's no hurry up about this. You're not racing against time or anything. You're an eternal, immortal, in that sense, being, indestructible. What's your hurry?
Very true. The second question, I guess, then would be asking for advice on working on not judging, not just with people, but in situations. I know that I have followed that rule of everything, no matter what it is to my benefit. But is there advice in letting go of like the judgments of people, places, and things as good or bad?
All right. Well, you have just actually given yourself the answer, but you have maintained the contradiction within it for some reason of your own, which is a belief unto itself. You've actually said, I know that everything can be used to my benefit. If you truly know that, what would there be to judge? Judgment wouldn't be an option. It wouldn't make sense. So because you are still judging, even while you say you know you can use everything to your benefit, clearly you don't fully understand or believe that concept yet.
Yes, you're right.
I know.
Is there any advice on deepening of that understanding?
Yes. Stop asking for outside advice and just know that you understand more than you think if you would only act on it fully.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're worthy. You are worthy or you wouldn't exist. So you're capable of allowing yourself to understand these concepts and practicing these concepts until you fully ingrain them within who you are. So when you hear yourself, learn to say the thing you say you believe, but learn to pay attention to whether you actually believe it in your actions and responses and emotions. And if you recognize that there's a contradiction there, work on that and find out where the contradiction is coming from, because it can only be coming from another negative belief, that you don't quite have the worthiness to truly buy into and believe what you say you know would serve you. So explore that.
Thank you. So we've been taught in our schools that, we have such diversity here on Earth.
Yes.
Within the human race alone.
Yes, it's beautiful.
We were taught that the reason that in the human race specifically, why there are so many differences, because at the beginning we started migrating and then we adapted to the climate. And this always seemed a little unsatisfactory to me. Is there more to it?
To some degree, that is true. You have different kinds of genetics in you. You're all hybridized from different kinds of genetics throughout the galaxy. But the idea is that when you move into different climates, the climates can trigger some of those deep genetic differences that exist within you so that you will adapt to the different climates because of the genetics that exist within all of you that are from different places And therefore, the climate, it may be the idea of the trigger, but the genetics within you come from many different places and among the stars. And that's why that happens to the degree that it does on your planet. Other planets may experience this to some degree, but not so many as deeply. You are an extremely hybridized civilization.
Wow.
For example,
yes.
on my own world. Now, we don't really have the differences in climate around the planet that you do. We're mostly temperate and mild, but there are some differences here and there between the idea of north and south and so on and so forth. You might see a slight, very slight, if you know what to look for, slight variation in some of the beings on my planet that constantly live in a slightly different climate. But it's not quite so apparent as it is on your planet, because we don't have quite the same kind of mix of genetics being engineered as a race as we were, that you do by receiving different genetics from different extraterrestrial beings at different times for different purposes, plus, of course, the panspermia idea of originally receiving genetic material on your planet from different places in the universe that gave the soup, so to speak, the mix of genetic material on your planet already much more differentiated than on a lot of other planets. It just depends on your location as to what arrives on your planet that begins the process of how much genetic variation you can actually experience. Plus then the introduction of different extraterrestrial genetics through encounters and different kinds of experiences can also add to the mix. So you have a greater variety on your planet of genetic material than we do, and thus the differences that climate can affect are much greater and of a greater range than you would experience on our planet. But there are many differences on other planets as well.
That's very interesting. So for the next question, it's actually about channeling.
Yes.
I found that while channeling, I have a lot of experiences where it seems like there's multiple entities trying to speak at the same time.
You may be aware of the fact that there are multiple entities you're connecting to. It's not that they're trying to speak at the same time. It's just that you're aware that they're there and have something to say. That's more coming from your side than the idea that they're trying to speak at the same time. On that level, they would know how to coordinate their speech to follow one another in an appropriate way. You're assuming it's all coming from the same source or different sources at the same time because you're aware of them at the same time.
I see.
So you'll sort it out. You'll sort it out.
Okay. I've had experiences that, from what you just said, I've created then, where I've had like I'm channeling for one entity, and then another one comes in and says something kind of like different, and then the other one's like, "Shut up! I'm not like not shut up, but like
again,
don't listen to that one."
It's being filtered through your physical mind as to how you're interpreting what's being given to you.
That makes sense.
Yes, I know. That's why I said it.
Right.
So we thank you for today. Go and have some fun.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Good day.
Good day.
Hello, Bashar. I would like to get more explanation out of you about the mind-body relationship. You've said that the mind exists within the body within the soul. Right. But that's pretty vague. I think. Like, when you say mind, does that include the higher mind, or is it just the physical mind? And as a healer, like, my experiences definitely would agree with the idea of the mind existing with, like, the physical mind existing within the body. That much seems very clear. But logically, I still grapple with that one because our physical health is so impacted by the beliefs and definitions that we have in our mind. So it would appear that the body is subject to the mind, even though I know that can't be, that the mind has to be subject to the body. And I would love some great examples, or at least one good example of how the mind is subject to the body. That would be helpful. Please comment. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, in some cases, you're accurate, and in some, you're sort of mixing your metaphors. But to start simply, often, in most cases, when we say body, mind, and spirit, the spirit part is what represents the higher mind in that definition or in that example. Although we understand that spirit can be a different thing, although it still includes the higher mind. So the idea is that yes, your body can be conditioned by the mind, and the mind can be conditioned by the body in a sort of cyclic feedback loop. What you believe yourself to be, what you think of yourself as, can have an effect on how the body behaves. And how the body behaves can reinforce or have an effect on who you think you are, or what you believe about yourself to be true. So that kind of works in tandem with one another. The idea is that the higher mind is above and beyond the idea of the physical mind. Physical mind is simply that which allows you to have a physical experience expressed as the idea of a physical body, because that's just a projection of consciousness, as all physical reality is. So the body is, in a sense, the spirit projecting a portion of itself in a certain way that experiences itself as a physical being. And in order to experience oneself as a physical being, you have to have an organizational pattern of energy within that physical being that represents the physical mind, so it can be aware consciously of the experience it is having. The soul, as we have said, is sort of like unfired clay. The spirit is the ceramic that is the fired clay that represents the particular specific experience you're having as a particular physical identity, and therefore is contained within the oversoul and the soul ultimately. But the higher mind is a splitting of the soul into the non-physical guiding higher mind and the physical mind having the physical experience. Once the physical mind exists, then the body is subject to the belief systems in the physical mind, and again, the body can reinforce those particular physical beliefs within the physical mind. We do not know if this is a clear enough explanation for you since we're not interacting with you, but generally speaking, you have the oversoul, the soul, splitting itself into the non-physical higher mind, then the physical mind, which then can have an experience of creating the spirit that is then once again taking that specific physical life experience and incorporating it back into the soul's experience and feeding that back into the oversoul's experience, which feeds it back into all that is.